working with us at CapeTown for our Women's Month campaign and in celebrating us as women. Can you tell us who you are and a little about what you do?
Awesome. Leila, thank you so much for the opportunity to be in this space. I really do appreciate it. So, my name is Storm Joy, and that kind of sums up who I am because I am a multifaceted being. I absolutely love sharing who I am with people. I love being who I am, and I think that's one of my gifts. So, I am a program facilitator, and I facilitate trauma-informed programs in different schools. I am specifically passionate about schools and areas who don't receive this kind of information and who don't have access to the resources to educate themselves. I'm from Heideveld. My parents are still there. I actually visited today, and I was just so humbled and reminded about my purpose, right? So I also come from a struggling background. I know what it's like to not have Wi-Fi, hot water, or food, and that is why I do the work that I do. So I'm just here to spread my wings and inspire people to do the same.
It's like you said, you found like your purpose. You found your purpose. Can you speak a little more on that? Like what made you interested in that? In trying to get into who you are now?
Okay. So there's actually a very practical story that I can share with you that can give you an idea of who I am. So when I matriculated, my dad was in the tourism industry and I knew I wanted to work with people. I knew I wanted to chat to people, even though I grew up an introvert, right? So I did a tour guiding course that I absolutely loved. I loved exploring our province. I love learning new things about our history, but I'd go home to Edefal each evening and see the kids and know that some of these kids don't have a portion of the opportunity that I have. Something as simple as going to the beach, going to the mountain. So this really inspired me to think beyond where I was and really think of how I can be that person to link people between nature, which I love, and human beings. I love human beings. I'm a humanitarian, like, that's just how it is. So I actually went for my first job interview, and it was a beautiful job a beautiful space, sorry, in Hout by a travel agency, and I managed to get my first job interview. So the guy called me and he's like, Storm, well done, you aced your first interview, you got the job as a tour guide, and the salary is this. But I then said, Ben, thank you so much, and you might think I'm out of my mind, but I can't accept this job offer. My heart is just wanting to do more. Wow. My family were up in arms. They're like, this child is crazy. They even got social workers for me at one point because they genuinely couldn't understand what I meant when I said I want to follow my heart. But there was a calling and there was a pull, and I denied the job even though we needed the money. And somehow I managed to go study in Wellington, social auxiliary work. I told my parents I declined the job because I want to help people, and that was the bottom line. I didn't know who, how, what, but after the difficulty in my teenage years, it's just like I just found this new purpose and this new drive, right? Yes, so Leila, going home each day and seeing the kids in my community, knowing they don't have a portion of the opportunities that I have to smell the fresh ocean air, to see the beautiful mountains, the trees, to feel what nature has to offer, that didn't sit right with me. And I declined the job, and I was set. And I've always been someone, once I set my heart and my mind on something, like I'm going to follow through, right? So my heart was set on wanting to help people, but I needed to figure out how and what. Fortunately, my parents made a way to send me to Wellington to study social auxiliary work. And I remember when I moved to Wellington, my phone had broke the week before. So for 2 months, I was in a new space, living on my own in a room, like maybe this is a meter, right? So like 2 meters in
In
width,
width.
and then length would maybe be about 4 or 5 meters. So we had a bed that was on it had a base, but I took my bed off the base, made a floor bed, and then used the wooden base like to hang cool things on. I put it up against the wall. And in this time, I really took it unintentionally to discover myself. I mean, I was alone. What else could I do?
Yes.
It was a hostel, so I also connected with beautiful people, but a lot of the time I spent on my own and connecting with two beautiful friends that I met there. So during our social auxiliary work studies, we had to do 2 internships. And my first internship that I managed to secure was at the Department of Social Development in town. We were based in town, but we were sent out to do house calls in Kensington and Facklington. So basically, I worked under a social worker, and all her cases in the area, I would go out with her. So some of our clients lived at the graveyard, some of them lived in the hut, some of them barely wanted to know. But we actually, so to be very honest, it was a great experience, but it was very formal. Lots of admin. I feel like the admin got in the way of the healing process. And I didn't discover more about myself yet at the time, but somewhere deep inside of me, I knew I wanted a bit more creative freedom, and I wanted to discover holistic healing that kind of can cancel out all the paperwork and the up and down to court. Like, I know these things are necessary, but I also feel like it causes a big void between yourself and the person in front, the human being in front of you, with paperwork and
I like that you mentioned it's another human being. They have feelings, it's a human being.
I think we forget that sometimes. And sometimes I forget that, and I remind myself that just because you see people at the robots all the time, just because you see people sleeping on the side of the road all the time, don't ever get used to that, because it's not normal. It's not okay. Um, so of course you somehow I have strength. Don't worry. People always ask me like, but how do you deal with this? I'm very grateful to have some sort of strength and anchoring to provide parts of myself to the people that I work with, my fellow people, brothers and sisters, literally. Yes, and then I enjoyed that space, but I didn't like the court vibe so much because I like to smile. That's actually what came up. I like to smile, so I had to go in, like looking into court, looking all serious. Did some work in Paul's. I was like, the ladies in Paul's more, but they have lipstick on. Some of the pants are cut, some of it's loose. They're fashionable, like. They're in there still trying to do what makes them happy, which I thought was kind of cool. But the fact that I had to kind of be so serious all the time didn't sit right with me. I wanted to connect with people. So I applied for another internship, which I wasn't supposed to do. So I went to work at an NGO in Woodstock called the Trauma Center for Survivors of Violence and Torture. And they sent me for further training in understanding trauma. And I kid you not, that training was the first time that I realized I had trauma. The first time. All these things happened to me in my life, but I never understood how it could have affected me, what it was, why I felt some type of way about it, but I just ignored it because I couldn't describe it, I couldn't put a word to it, right? So during our training, we obviously were educated on different kinds of trauma, collective trauma, non-visible trauma. And it was only when, I was over 18 and I realized those things actually affected me. I wasn't just a rebel, which I was. Love that for me though, I learned a lot and I can't believe I was kept safe all those years, alhamdulillah. But honestly, Layla, that was when I started my healing journey as well. But the fact that as someone who didn't lack many resources, I still had access to internet sometimes, even though we didn't have Wi-Fi, I still had access to internet. I was in school. I was in 3 different high schools. I mean, you know what I mean? How did I have this realization at this late age? And then I realized that all the difficulties that I experienced led me to that moment, right? Understanding financial strain, right? And like getting an idea of what sexual trauma is and non-verbal trauma and collective trauma. I mean, my mom, so sometimes I would sleep next to my mom, and we lived in the main road in Heidelberg, and she would wake up. She doesn't sleep to this day. She doesn't sleep. She would wake up 5 to 10 times a night at any sound. A dog barking, someone walking past.
Imagine that's in the main road, so.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's not normal, right? And that is, imagine the collective energy in that space of how everyone's nervous system is probably at its wit's end. I mean, when I moved out of Heidelberg, when the noon gun would go off in town, I would get a fright. And like, I don't get that fright anymore because my nervous system has come down to a more regulated state. But I still go to my mom and I still feel all the heaviness and that on edge, you know. I mean, there are so many perks of being in our beautiful community. Yes. Seriously, I missed it. Now some things happen in the area, nobody knows what happened, nobody saw nothing. You go to Heidelberg, allemaal het alles gezien, you know, people know what's happening,
and
people know
who's playing in it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I love our communities, and I just wish that we can be more informed, man, so that we can live in a better space amongst each other. I want people to be able to sleep peacefully at night. Peace of mind, the simple things, the things money can't buy. But also I think as women, you know, I sat down with my mom today and I said, Mom, I don't blame you for anything. But you must understand as women, we were conditioned to take care of everyone else before ourselves. And I said, you're getting older now and the only thing I want is a happy mom. I don't want a rich mom, a fancy mom. I just want you to be happy, and for me that means just taking care of yourself.
Yes.
Take care of yourself. Stop putting yourself aside for everybody else, you know. So that is my biggest wish for my whole family. So gosh, where were we?
So you were speaking about you joined the trauma.
Okay, yes, so the trauma center. So we worked in different schools and I facilitated trauma support groups. I heard many stories. Sometimes I meet people and they can share a story and I'm like, yo, I actually can't remember any of it because there were so many, I mean, grown men crying in their hands, young girls telling stories that you can't even imagine is coming out of a 12 or 13-year-old girl, beautiful young soul, you know, coming out of her mouth. So these are the things that just gave me so much drive. I mean, how could it not? So from the trauma center, my family was like, hey Storm, you know, it's been a year now, you need to start making some money, you need to start bringing money home because I was the one who declined that job. I could have been getting paid. So I never had a paid job yet at this point, but oh goodness. And then I humbled myself because I couldn't get a job as a social auxiliary worker yet because I was still finishing my qualification. So I humbled myself and I was like, dog walking jobs, cleaning jobs. Like I just felt like I'm gonna do anything, you know. Why can't I do anything? Who am I? You know what I mean? I'm gonna do whatever. And then another form of alignment, this guy came in from the Netherlands and created a job for me as a project employee. So I put together projects, youth empowerment projects for kids from the Netherlands and South Africa. But only 5% of my job was social uplift. Obviously, I channeled 95% of me into that 5%. And then one day, one of my tasks was to find an organization that we can invest into as a company, find an NGO we can invest into. So I went I was looking, searching, thinking of the ones that I worked with before. And then I was on Instagram and I came across Second Chance Trust for the first time in my life. And I sent a message. Remember, I was unemployed before this. So I sent a message. This is a few months into my first paid job, and I was like, "Hi, I'm a project employee at the Dutch Cultural Center. We would like to invest in your company." So I could contact them from a job with a title. I had no intention. I was just doing my job. So these three big men come in, and my director calls. She's like, she can't come in. My other director's in the Netherlands. My colleague who was supposed to facilitate the meeting with me, literally, she was busy. So I had to facilitate this meeting alone with these three men. And I was nervous. I kid you not, I was shaking. Sat them down, went through with the meeting, and at the end, the director of that business looked at me and he's like, "So how long do you plan on working here?" And he looked around at the office space. And a week later, they offered me a job.
Wow.
And then on I think it was my 21st birthday, I took off sick from this company. It was a Tuesday. I took off sick. And I went to do my first talk at LuKremBo Girls. So I was still working with the current job, knowing I have this offer, but knowing I've never done public speaking before, ever. In fact, I actually grew up an introvert until I was like 13, 14, which is hard to imagine for me. It's hard to imagine. So yes, Layla, I literally was offered a job and I had to resign from this, and I was employed in the NGO space as a program facilitator. So on my birthday that year, I did my very first talk at LuKremBo Girls, and I compiled a trauma-informed program. Obviously, with all the information and education I received from my trauma support worker training, from my social auxiliary work training, and I just kind of chose information that is relative to young girls who do not have an idea of what trauma is, different kinds of trauma, and most importantly, how to cope with trauma. Because when we don't know what trauma is, we end up finding all different kinds of ways to cope, and often the most easiest ways to cope. I then, with this program that I compiled, they absolutely loved it. The school loved it. They didn't know it was my first talk. And it was just trauma-informed, but in a light, simple, but impactful way. And also making reference to a lot of my personal experience, right? So, yeah, I took off work that day and I went back, like so excited. It made me feel so good, you know. And then the following month, I started my new job at Second Chance Trust. I've been working with them for 2.5 years. But the crazy part is, Layla, that earlier in that year, I was chatting with a very intelligent guy with my mom and my sister, and I told this guy, like, I love working with people, I would love to do programs and things. And he said, you should be a program facilitator. And at that time, I was like, yo, that would be really cool to be a program facilitator. But I then said, okay, in 5 years' time, I can be a program facilitator. And then I cannot believe that the very next year, I was employed with job title program facilitator. How crazy is that, you know? So, exactly. So my journey has really been divinely guided and blessed. And I can't take any credit for it. Really, 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 I can't. I'm just here existing.
I'm doing the work.
Exactly, I'm just here existing, and I'm grateful for every experience that I had.
I love that I'm interviewing you with, or not formally interviewing you, but just having this talk, because you come from a point of view from actually a youth point of view. Because normally we hear a lot of maybe the previous generation speaking about it. So it's a good thing that you as a youth person still in this industry that we so I love that.
Thank you.
Can you talk about maybe any challenges that you were faced with or are faced with now, obviously, the people's stories, like, it comes with a lot of,
Yes.
heartache and trauma, like you mentioned, but maybe on the internal side, whether it's work, concern, or something.
Yeah. So a challenge that myself and many other young girls I think face is struggling to stand up for themselves in the workspace. It's very difficult. I'm not saying it's easy, but I am saying that we should try to stand up for what is right and what we believe is right. Even if our voice shakes, even if our voice trembles, face that fear, look that fear in the face, and take a tiny step towards it. Another challenge for me, Layla, is that I want to work with more women, but I just find myself every time I'm in a business meeting or some kind of exchange where this person wants me to bring my value into this space in exchange for money, like it's always a man.
Yes.
And I'm so tired of that. And I've set the intention recently to work with women. Don't get me wrong, I love men, I'm all for men healing and all of us rising up together. But I do want to work with more women and, have us take up more space in the business world, in the having positions where we can uplift other women, where we can speak about things that we actually know what we're talking about because we know what it's like to be a woman. I mean, we are so powerful, and I think that is why we were oppressed in the very first place. Because as women, we are so huge and we are so abundant.
Yes.
And
we do so much.
So much, and we multiply, we do. So, but another challenge was and I'm only saying this now for the very first time because I've never struggled with mental health, right? But I think that over these years, being an open person, but also having this strength of having it not affect me. Like I never used to go home and break down and cry.
Yes.
But my mind was always thinking, how can I help? How can I support? How can I? So now, I needed to find something to ground myself more. And that's where I found yoga. So, yeah, so now I've been incorporating my my personal well-being. I've been prioritizing more. I think at that time I was just prioritizing my mental well-being and not so much my physical well-being, but it kind of is all interlinked.
With yoga.
Yes, exactly. And just in general, I find that when I do move my body, I find myself in a better state of mind. Our minds often operate from a state of fear and overwhelm because it's always worrying about what needs to be done still or what has happened. But the body is always present, right? The body can't be in the future or in the past. The body is always grounded and present. So bringing the mind and the mental state into the body by bringing your awareness to your breath, to your senses, to sounds, these things ground us. And the work that I do improved or helped me as a person, my individual growth. It has helped my family, and I believe it will help my future family. So that's why I love what I do. It just makes sense, because I'm like, okay, I'm learning about emotions. This is surely going to help me at a later stage. Like, I'm learning how to regulate myself. Surely that's going to help me when I have a family one day. And oh my word, I'm going to tell you a story, inshallah. I mean, funny story. Last week, driving with my dad. Now my dad is a calm, gentle giant, but road rage still very present. But I'm on my way to a yoga class, man. It's first thing in the morning. Now we're on the N1, and he took a junk turn. I will definitely show you this. He took a junk turn, and this guy comes so close to our car, and this guy is like, and like spitting, and he's red, and my dad is like, sorry, and then he's like, and I'm like, Dad. I said, Dad, not right now. I said, it's not worth your energy.
Yes.
I said, what are you going to take from this?
Now the funniest thing is that when you come with your soft and calm voice, but then they like so.
Yes, exactly. So, but I'm my dad's only child. I do have siblings. I'm his only child. So now he's confused. Because for the first time, maybe in his life, he has to regulate his emotions. Because obviously, before I was younger, I just let him be angry. Then I take on that, and I'm like shook afterwards, you know. Now he's holding the steering wheel. It's like, I'm not doing anything. I'm not doing anything. And I'm the guy who's next to me. This guy is just on a day off. But and I roll up my window and I'm like,
Yes.
and I'm like, Dad, you just relax. He's not worth it. He's not worth it. And then the guy goes, zoom, speeding off. And I was like, see, there you just learned how to just be, not act on every emotion. And I think that in itself is such a powerful tool.
Yeah.
Because it can be implemented in so many situations. When we feel anger, maybe we're not angry, someone else is angry, so we want to be angrier. You know what I mean? So that was just crazy. I was like, breathe. Cool though, look, we can teach each other.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Storm. I'm loving chatting with you. I think before we end off, could you provide maybe some guidance or some tips on how to bring self-awareness to our emotions? You know, you never know who's watching this, or like reach or touch. So, yeah, some guidance.
Yes. Okay. So I'll talk to the camera. So I just want people to know that firstly, I was an introvert and I struggled with self-esteem as many people do. I still struggle with self-esteem. But I wasn't always this outgoing and warm. It took a lot of hard work. But my first tip is gratitude. Right? So I used to focus a lot on what I don't have. So when you focus on what you don't have, you're channeling all your energy into nothingness, actually, right? And I started to shift my focus to what I do have, and that is gratitude, right? Focusing on the little things that you do have, even if it's not much, and you will see how it becomes more. So the first thing is shifting your focus from what you don't have or what you're lacking to what you do have and how you can grow that, right?
So simple.
Exactly. The second thing is forgive yourself and others. We always speak about forgiving others, but if we don't forgive ourselves, we carry the shame and guilt that is often firstly not even ours to carry. Lots of young girls and myself included, carried and still carry a lot of shame and guilt about things that we did when we were younger. These things do not define you, right? It's merely part of your journey. And I know it sounds cliche to ask yourself, what is this teaching me? But there is always a lesson in everything. And even if that lesson is just self-forgiveness, forgive yourself and find out who you are outside of the shame and guilt, outside of other people's ideas of who you are. Um, that is a very, very important for me, self-forgiveness. And then the last thing, don't limit yourself. Limiting beliefs are very real and they can keep us stuck. I'm still moving through many limiting beliefs, but I think I've moved through the main ones, I mean, surely I've moved through them because I never believed I could speak in front of crowds. I never believed I would have confidence, to speak to one person, one-on-one, or a group of people. Um, so challenge those limiting beliefs, find out where they come from, and know that you can change them. You are literally capable of anything. Right? You are capable of anything, and that doesn't have to be a huge thing. It doesn't have to be a big move. It doesn't have to be a title. It can simply be taking care of yourself. You are capable and worthy of that, right? And one last thing later, your worth is not based on how much you can do for someone or how much you extend yourself to people. Your worth is not based on how much people validate you or receive you. We are born with inherent worth. The fact that we wake up every morning means that the Almighty still has a purpose for you and in your life. And then know that with hardship comes ease, man. Not afterwards or separately. In that hardship, there is that ease, and it's within. So, yeah, I really hope that someone can relate to this video and take something home, put it in your back pocket for later.
On the counters.
On your counter, yeah. Exactly.
Thanks so much. For anyone maybe wanting to get in touch with you or find out more about the yoga that you're offering, how can we get in touch with you?
Awesome. So definitely via Joy Ventures, which is my business page. And then I also host monthly holistic walks for women. It's a very sacred space. It's beautiful. Everyone is welcome. So I thought it's kind of fitting to mention that now. Come alone, come on your own, come with someone. You are just so welcome. So contact me on Joy Ventures or Storm Joy and anytime.
Thanks for taking your time out of your schedule to sit with us and chat a little.
You're so welcome, Leila. Thank you to you.